Let's go to Sydney now and catch up with a Labor Senator for New South Wales, Tony Sheldon. Tony, you'll be thinking you've tuned into the wrong show. We're sitting there listening to me praising the incoming Labor government. But they've got plenty of problems at home while they're doing well in their diplomacy at the moment. This energy scenario has not been created by Labor. It's not even been created by just federal governments. It's been state and federal governments, Labor and Liberal, over many years. How could such an energy-rich country do this to itself?
Chris, first of all, good afternoon, and you've actually quite right. How could we possibly have done this? This is actually a really critical question about why we're at where we are right now and what's the way out of it. Now, you've seen that we've had 22 policies on energy for the last 9 years, and not one of them have landed. And we've seen what the consequences of that is, that we're seeing the whole thing blowing up in the face of consumers, mums and dads and businesses out there, with prices going up. Now, this is quite, it's clearly there has to be a strategy where everyone's brought together. And to Chris Bowen's credit, he got all the state leaders in the energy field with the federal government and came up with an 11-point plan on how to get this back on track. 9 years of incompetence, 22 policies.
If Chris Bowen's serious...
And we should have been prepared for what's happening right now.
If Chris Bowen's serious about our medium to long-term energy options, and he wants it to be emissions-free, of course, why would he so emotively and erroneously rule out nuclear? Surely you've got to be able to look at nuclear. Even the left faction Labor Premier of South Australia, Jay Weatherill, was prepared to look at the economic opportunities of a domestic nuclear industry.
Yes, it's actually really, again, a good question, because where's nuclear at? Putting aside people's views about fears or concerns about nuclear, the fact is it doesn't stack up economically. And that's moved on from when Jay Weatherill was there. There was an argument put forward, there was discussions taking place. And even my good friend Dan Walton, earlier in the Business Forum from the Australian Workers Union, has many manufacturing workers and wants to see cheap energy, had been a lot of an advocate for nuclear energy, but he said times has passed now. It's not the cheap alternative, and it's not the thing that's going to bring manufacturing back to Australia, because it doesn't stack up financially these days.
I don't know that...
and that's where we're at.
I don't know that governments are the best people to work out how markets work, especially when the energy market has just been completely rearranged by government interventions. The point with nuclear would be to get rid of the legislative impediments and just see what proposals come forward. No one's saying build anything, but you can't just decide on a whim that it's uneconomic. Certainly France, the UK, Taiwan, the US, China, they think it's economic.
Well, so you look at two things here. One is why is the opposition raised this as an option? And that's because they want to say, look over here, fire off a firework whilst dropping the matches in the fireworks box, and it all exploding with the crisis, with the challenges we've got now with power prices going up, because they failed to actually set policy in place for the last 9 years. Now, nuclear energy and the options regards nuclear energy, if it was going to work, and your point about the market would be jumping up and down and knocking over our doors right now, right at this minute, to put nuclear energy in place. The reality is the energy market itself is saying that's not the best option. It is cheaper to have renewables. It's cheaper to have eventually hydrogen, and we have to make sure we have that coal and gas mix. The coal and gas mix, in the meantime, Chris, which I thoroughly agree should be in place to make sure that we've got certainty as those changes are taking place in the market, because the market says it's cheaper. Yeah. I want jobs back in Australia, and the cheapest way of getting jobs back in Australia is driving energy prices down.
I just love these cheap renewables. They're really good. They're really cheap power to keep your food frozen in the freezer, or to keep your respirator going while the wind's blowing or the sun's shining. But then there's no power, and that ends up being very, very expensive. We've got to sort this out. We need dispatchable power, and I can't believe we've done this to ourselves. We do have no more time, though. I'm sorry, Tony. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you again soon.
Talk to you soon, Chris. Take care.
Labor Senator for New South Wales there, Tony Sheldon. We've got to get this country sorted when it comes to energy. It's going to take a lot of people and a lot of time and a lot of money.